You hate pixel art. It's obsolete, ugly, and gives you a headache, and you'll never ever like any pixel art game. Or will you? Today I present to you new pixel art games that go above and beyond with their visuals and style to put your disdain of pixel art to the test. You might be surprised by what you see. If you already love pixel art, then this is going to be a treat. Dithering in Mariachi Legends. This is a pixel art Metroidvania. It's supposed to be brutal, combat-oriented, and set in the heart of Mexico. You play as Pablo Cruz, a detective who has agreed to deal with death herself, and things get a little bit tricky. Now, pixel art for Metroidvanias and platformers in general are common, but this one really does go next level. Some have said, and I would agree with them, that this is kind of the definitive art style for retro-inspired Metroidvania games. So Metroidvanias as in like Castlevania and Super Metroid. They were retro games back in the past that were, by technological limitations, pixel art games because that's what was available at the time. But now pixel art is sort of neo-pixel, where yeah, it uses pixels, but more of a form of expression, kind of like the art styles pointillism or micromosaics. You know, it's an art style. And Mariachi Legends doesn't just do the whole pixel art style, it's the effects and the sort of hand-drawn animations with the pixels that look really, really impressive. And quite often you might find in this list that pixel artists tend to be pretty good at 2D animation as well, and you'll see some of the cinematics in this game and throughout this list that you'll see some very nice 2D animation. So generally, Mariachi Legends looks phenomenal. And if you're looking for a new Metroidvania, then this one is on the way. Mariachi Legends was successfully Kickstarter funded in 2023, and it's been coming along, so we can expect this sometime in the relatively near future. And now for today's sponsor that fits a pixel art games list perfectly, Kingdom 2 Crowns. This is a great looking base building pixel art game that released a while ago where you build up your kingdom, recruit villagers, and explore the world defending against invading enemies, and you get to conquer new lands. This game has received tens of thousands of user reviews on Steam at over 90% positive, so it's been a big hit, and you can try it for free on Steam for this free weekend. I can say that it's compelling and relaxing playing this. It's really easy to lose track of time because you get hooked building up your base and progressing and unlocking new things and progressing to new lands. And there's also a new major expansion called Call of Olympus, and if you already own the game, it's been getting free updates as well if you want to jump back in for the new content. You can play the campaign or challenge islands solo or in co-op with a friend. There's even split screen for local multiplayer, so you can team up with someone this time around if you haven't already. The main unique mechanic here is that you use the resources you gather to pay for buildings, upgrades, and your citizens in a kind of unified thing you do, making interacting with the game quick to let you focus on the many different elements that keep happening. So although exploring a world while building a base and surviving sounds like a lot to handle at once with a single character you control, the way it's done makes it manageable. Even when you get to the next tech level and start training soldiers to march out to defeat your enemies. Kingdom 2 Crowns is on sale, so be sure to click the link below to check it out, and thank you for your support, and thanks to Raw Fury for sponsoring. Next we have a more recent announcement that's about mixed art styles, Threads of Time. This one is probably a little bit ways off, but the way this game looks is just insane. It's a phenomenal mix of pixel art styles with 2D animation and 2.5D 3D space, and it's just got so much eye candy that it's kind of very hard to describe, so look at what's on the screen right now. This mixed styles might be the bridge that works for you. If you hate pixel art, then this sort of mixed style approach could be the gorgeous thing that makes you get into pixel art. And by the way, mixing art styles like this into a cohesive look is incredibly difficult. I have an arts background, and it's one thing to be like, yeah, we're doing a pixel art game. But this game is doing sort of pixel art, 2D, 3D, 2.5D, all at the same time, and it somehow looks correct. It looks so good. And it's just sort of this really high-end execution of what a lot of games do try to do. Now, I don't know if Threads of Time is going to be a great game, but just looking at the trailer, it will at least look great. So it's worth having a closer look. Now, in terms of gameplay, this is a JRPG, sort of a classic approach to the RPG genre. And it's also got time traveling, going back to 12 million BC into the future of 2400 AD, and there's an apocalypse, and you're time traveling and collecting heroes and building your party from people and things from across the ages. So it's not just mixing art styles, it is also mixing time periods. And if they do manage to bring all of these elements together, Threads of Time could be something very special. But we will have to wait and see. Then for a game that's got a recent full release, Songs of Conquest. Here we have a Heroes of Might and Magic spiritual successor that wanted to go back to the older style of Heroes of Might and Magic 1, 2, and 3, and a bit of 4. If you've only played the more recent Heroes of Might and Magic, 5, 6, 7, then this is trying to go back to the old style. And by the way, I should mention that Heroes of Might and Magic has a new game coming up called Olden Era, which is also trying to go back to the older style, but that's not pixel art. Songs of Conquest is pixel art. It's neo-pixel with some fantastic looking effects and designs and styles, and it's a tactical exploration kingdom management strategy game, turn-based, which is what Heroes of Might and Magic fans are kind of looking for. That's why it did release in 2024 to very positive user reviews on Steam, and just in terms of player numbers and review scores, Songs of Conquest has already overtaken Heroes of Might and Magic 5, 6, and 7 on Steam. So it's definitely a success already, and it is fully out. With the 4 factions, plenty of campaign content, multiplayer, map makers, it's all there. And just for a long time, Songs of Conquest has been just a sort of pinnacle in terms of pixel art execution. And now that the game is fully released, I think it's safe for people to jump in. If you're looking for this kind of game, then Songs of Conquest looks great and plays great. Hey, now that you're a bit into the list, I'm sure you're enjoying it, so it'd be greatly appreciated if you can like the video. And if you want to support, use the GOG referral link below to buy any game, or become a patron on Patreon, as I love supporting classic vibe games like this, but they aren't always mainstream hits for videos. Thank you. Alright, next game, Forge of the Fae. Here is a story-rich, mysterious world inspired by Celtic folklore where you use crystals to channel powerful magic and make impactful choices that changes the story's outcome. That is the promise anyway. Now they're promising a unique crystal system and battles with dangerous fae, and of course, as you can see, it's a pretty charming approach to the pixel style. It sort of gives that cozy 90s retro modern JRPG vibes. Not quite the full modern approach of mixed art styles like Threads of Time. This one is a bit more of a classic vibe, but still very chill, very charming. Now the full release of Forge of the Fae is a bit further into the future, but there has been a free demo on Steam that you can try right now. So it is somewhat playable at the moment. And to build up to their full release, they did launch a Kickstarter that was fully funded by a lot. They've far surpassed their funding goal on Kickstarter. So Forge of the Fae is definitely on the way, and you can try the free demo right now. Otherwise, keep an eye on it for its full release later on down the line. Then we got a unique looking one called Animal Well. This was sort of a surprise blow-up hit in 2024. It's sort of a Metroidvania puzzle game with pixel graphics, but it's not just pixel art. It's got this weird neon, more retro but somehow modern electro vibes to it as well. It's hard to describe the art style, but you can see it's got this CRT distortion kind of approach to everything in it. and it is somehow modern and retro at the same time. So in this game, you'll be exploring a dense, interconnected labyrinth, and you'll be unraveling secrets and collecting items to manipulate your environment in surprising and meaningful ways. And you encounter beautiful and unsettling creatures as you try to survive in the dark. Now, this one did release to overwhelmingly positive user reviews on Steam. Over 12,000 user reviews at the time of recording at 95% positive. People are loving Animal Well, and it's just such a big hit that no one really saw coming. So I did mention that pixel art and Metroidvanias do go hand in hand these days, but this approach is just something very different. And if you're wondering if pixel art can be different from one style to another, then I think Animal Well really does show that pixel art is more than one style. Speaking of pixel art styles and overwhelmingly positive reviewed games, Arco. This is what I think a very great expression of minimalistic pixel art. So I know minimalism and simplicity often get mixed up or are used interchangeably, but I use minimalism very specifically here. Simplicity is simple, very basic. Minimalism is very purposeful, very carefully curated. And Arco has this amazingly clean approach to its visuals, and it just looks really nice, really cool, really chill. Now, the kind of game it is that it's a blend of turn-based and real-time combat RPG, and you'll be exploring the world through 3 handcrafted stories set amongst the themes of bloodshed, laced with magic, and united by revenge. This game does have a free demo on Steam at the time of recording, so you can just try the demo and see if this is something you want to get into, but it did also fully release in 2024 to, again, overwhelmingly positive user reviews. With a good few hundred user reviews, so it's not a massive mainstream success, but it is at 97% positive. So I think with the free demo and the trailer, you kinda know what you're gonna be getting into before you actually get the game. So everyone who's jumping in knows what they're getting into, so of course they love it. And that's kind of the benefit of having free demos and just very clear communication of what you are as a game and setting those expectations. So I think from what you can see here, you can tell whether you want to try the free demo, and from the free demo, you'll be able to tell whether you want to get fully into Arco, and that's how you get overwhelmingly positive user reviews on Steam. But either way, I think Arco is a very nice expression of pixel art in a very different direction from what we've seen so far. For another mixed style pixel art game, Back to the Dawn. Here is sort of a prison game. You were framed and incarcerated, and you have to learn to survive in prison. Explore every inch and exploit any weakness you can find. You'll be manipulating and scheming. You gotta make friends or enemies, and you're trying to break out with your fellow inmates. But things don't go always according to plan. Now, this is a story-rich pixel art detective RPG. The themes of sneaking and stealth and secrets are strong here. And also, you were framed, so who did that? You gotta figure it out. Now, in terms of the pixel art style here, it is sort of mixing that 2.5D with some 3D pixel art and non-pixel art mixed styles approach, which does seem to be coming together in its own unique way. This game did enter early access towards the end of 2023 to very positive user reviews on Steam, and recent user reviews are overwhelmingly positive at 97%. Back to the Dawn released to over 90%, and it seems to be getting better and better through early access. That's what you want to see, an early access game where the recent reviews are higher than all reviews. That's how you know an early access game is getting better and better. Now, according to the original estimate, Back to the Dawn is supposed to release towards the end of 2024, but it's already so well liked in early access, and early access games can always get delayed a little bit further, so the exact date for the full release is a little uncertain, but it seems to be something that people are enjoying jumping into right now. You can have a quick look, see if it's something you want to get into, or wait for the full release. with a darker approach, Drova Forsaken Kin. Here we have an action RPG that marries the dark, grim tones of that genre with the mysticism of Celtic mythology. You'll be encountering a society where ancient restless spirits and divided factions battle for dominance. And you'll yourself be uncovering forgotten abilities and unraveling secrets shrouded in mystery. Now, this is an action RPG, so think Diablo-esque, but it's a classic CRPG, action RPG kind of approach, Souls-like elements with this pixel art 2D style. The reason why I want to show this is because pixel art is one way to express gritty, grim, dark vibes. And you can do that in 3D, of course, but when it comes to pixel art, it can sort of express that retro grime, you could say. And I think it does it very well here in terms of creating that dirty but curated look. Drova Forsaken Kin is just about releasing, so you'll be able to see exactly what it is as you watch this. And if you're looking for a more real-time, action-y RPG with pixel art, then Drova Forsaken Kin might be the one to get you hooked. For a sort of tower defense, swarm survival game, Castle of Alchemists. This one you'll be defending your castle in a fast-paced tower defense action hybrid game with what I have to say, very nice pixel art. Not just because of the characters and the environments, but specifically on the effects, the fire, the lightning, the ice, the elements, and how they are animated in pixel art. It just looks really, really nice. And that's sort of one of the main challenges with pixel art, to have the effects and the lighting, all of that come together, the explosions, the actual fluid movements of certain effects in pixel art. That is very hard to do. And Castle of Alchemist does express those effects very cleanly, very nicely, and they're just so smooth, surprising, when I'm pretty sure they are looking like hand-drawn animations, but it just looks so smooth, which means they really put in the work to the animations in this game. Now, it is a tower defense game, which is going to be for some of you and not all of you, but it did release into early access around the middle of 2023, so it is playable for now, and did get a few hundred user reviews at about 90% positive, so those who are getting into it right now are enjoying it, though it was supposed to only be in early access for a few months, and it's well past that right now. So the game is still growing, it is still being updated, but when it's going to be fully released, it is very unclear because they're well past their original deadline. But in terms of pixel art, Castle of Alchemist does look great. Now, to be retro in more ways than one, SKALD Against the Black Priory. I've talked about this game for years because it's sort of a real modern take on an 80s styled retro RPG. It's a retro styled party-based RPG set in this grim, dark fantasy world of tragic heroes, violent deaths, and Lovecraftian horror. And it's so retro vibed. It feels more like the 80s than the 90s. But it is still a modern game with modern quality of life improvements, somewhat smoother animations and effects, but overall it really does pull you back to the 80s styled D&D kinda slightly horror RPG vibes. And this one did release in 2024 to overwhelmingly positive user reviews at 95% positive on Steam. A lot of people were wondering whether SKALD Against the Black Priory was gonna actually come together. There's been a number of demos and playtests throughout the years, and it was sort of looking good, it was feeling good, but it was never like fully finished. And now it is actually released, and people are loving it. But of course, it is a bit more of a niche approach. Like if you're from the 80s or even from the 90s, then you might vibe with it a bit more. If you're younger or a newer gamer, then you might not quite get where all of its elements are coming from. Generally, I think in terms of newer pixel art games, this is one of the best authentic retro expressions while maintaining that modernity that keeps things comfortable. You know, really taking the best of the past, but improving with the best of today. And then I want to talk about a long-term project called Death Trash. And again, it's still one of my favorite names of a video game, and this one has been in early access for a long time, but it feels like a very special project. Now, Death Trash has been in early access since towards the end of 2021. So it's been quite a few years, and it is an action RPG with real-time combat, but an old-school role-playing kind of approach. Think Fallout, but real-time, but also this game is kind of insane. They actually called it a gore punk world, and gore punk kind of feels a bit weird because punk typically sort of refers to the alternative power source. It's not always true, but as a general guideline, solar punk is a world that's all about solar stuff. Steampunk is all about steam stuff. So gore punk, what does that even mean? It's a world that runs on gore? And somehow, Death Trash is actually that. One of the primary power sources in the game is meat. And it's very hard to describe why that works, but meat grows out of the ground and people live off of that. And Death Trash is just such a violent / grim / dark, but also humorous and light-hearted game that it has this sort of parody approach to a post-apocalypse. So it is somehow severely severe, but also funny in many ways. Now, the full release of this game is currently planned for 2025, and in terms of pixel art, I think it does look really good for what it's trying to be. We mentioned that pixel art can lead to this grim, dark, rough, gritty feel, and Death Trash definitely does that, but in a more painterly way as well. Death Trash almost looks like it was painted with pixels, and that's a very interesting approach, like pixel watercolor is sort of what Death Trash looks like, and I think that's just such a nice, interesting, different approach to the style. Also, bonus point, there is a free demo. Before you jump into early access, you can try the free demo and see if it's something you want. And over the years so far, it has been getting more updates, content updates, more cities, more locations, more quests, everything. So 2025 looks like a reasonable time for Death Trash to release out of early access. And in the meantime, it's gotten 94% positive user reviews on Steam in early access. So people have liked it, but I think people are just sort of a little tired of it being in early access for so long, but also it's more of an indie development, so sometimes they just take years. So I'll be looking forward to the full release of Death Trash in 2025. Alright, that was a bunch of games. Which one was your favorite, and do you think any others deserve a mention? This is of course just one list of many that I've made. Maybe the game you're looking for is in another video on the playlist. Check that linked on screen and down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.